All right, welcome everybody. Okay, so this podcast, I had kind of had this certain idea that I've been wanting to do this podcast on a certain kind of topic about eBay. And that is, I have friends who are artists and they're actors and they always have a hard time finding work. And I've always thought like, wow, selling on eBay would be like perfect for artists because it's flexible. You can go and do jobs anytime, go and try out at any time. And you probably make more than if you work at a restaurant. So I thought I found someone. I think we're going to make it still a good podcast. But today I have Deric. Deric, how's it going?
Hello.
Hey.
It's going well. How are you?
Good. So, and we'd kind of talked about this. You are an artist. You're actually a comic.
Yep.
But eBay, it doesn't really kind of fund your art, but it kind of works into your life anyway. And so I thought we'd just kind of talk about what you do and how you do it.
Yeah, sure. I'm a stand-up comic. I've been a comic for far too many years, probably 13, 14, 15, somewhere in there. I hate saying the number because I'm never as far along in the business as I thought I would be at 15 years in.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've been a comic for about that long.
And just so people know, if it's all right, I will link to maybe some of your work on the blog so people can check it out. I was watching some of it. Thank God for YouTube,
I was going to say not safe for work, but
okay, good.
Not bad. Yeah.
Cool. Now, so let's talk about that. So you were a comic. Was the dream to one day be like a comic, like as a job, or?
It was the dream, and the dream, what I've learned, sort of my philosophy on life is the dream shifts. That's sort of, the dream is a moving target. Originally, it was to be a comic, be out on the road. I would have loved at some point to have been away for 3 months, just doing gig after gig after gig. And during that time, I got married.
Yeah.
And
that's a good thing.
Yes, it was. It still is, I should say. I met my wife in a comedy contest in a bar, which is unusual because I don't drink. Yeah. So it's the most unlikely place for me to meet somebody. And what ended up happening was we got married, and then we sort of decided, hey, I don't want to be away for this long. Yeah. I don't want to be gone for weeks on end. And so the dream has shifted to, hey, maybe I can pay for vacation each year with doing comedy.
Yep.
And that's my ultimate goal at this point in time. Plus, we have a 2-year-old daughter as well now, and the thought of being away for a full week is difficult at times. So
I was gonna I mentioned that having a kid too is a big one as well, and that your importance in life starts to shift as you talk about, and I think you bring up a very good point too. It's not necessarily bad to like, oh, I succeeded, I failed, it's black or white. It's just kind of like, it's kind of cool that you're still doing comedy. It's still, you're still making some money, but you're practicing, and that's a cool thing,
Yeah, and I have a day job, a full-time day job, which really pays the bills. My wife has 2 part-time evening jobs, and so just in terms of our time we're able to spend on anything, is limited at this point. I've had to turn down gigs within the last couple of weeks that would have taken me out on nights where she had to be at work.
Right.
So you learn just to focus on what you can do and sort of not get bothered by the stuff that you can't,
I mean, that is just like the American way now, just where both people are working basically full time. I mean, that's crazy,
Yeah. What ended up happening with us is after my daughter was born, my wife was working full time for the lead up, and then once our daughter was born, she started working part time evenings, and this was so we could not avoid daycare, but daycare was so expensive that we ultimately had to make a choice as to what was more important, us being around all the time and handing her off, like, where she works evenings, I work days, and we become basically single parents during the other portion, or if it was more important for us to store away a little more money.
Yeah. Because I mean, we don't have kids, but I really feel like that's such an interesting, issue to have in your life when you have a kid, and hopefully you can be around for the first couple of weeks or month, and then basically it's like, okay, we got to go to work. Let's hand off a little infant to daycare. Like,
Yep.
go for it. And it's very expensive, and it's just what a crazy system.
Yeah. I had 2 weeks after my daughter was born
Wow.
to be away.
Wow.
And actually, it ended up being about 1 week because I had to take the week before she was born off.
Wow.
Eventually you go, well, again, we're going to do the right thing here for us and, not do daycare.
Yep. So then is it the kind of thing where like, did you come home at 4 and she leaves at 5, and like, did you guys barely hand off the kid? Wow.
It's actually a tighter timeline. It's I leave work at 4. I live about 15 minutes from work, and my wife is out the door usually by 4:30.
Wow.
Today I actually picked my daughter up at work, at my wife's work.
Wow.
Because she has more of a loose schedule, so she can go in when she wants to.
And when do you guys have time to be together? That's like weekends or?
Weekends usually. Some nights around 10 o'clock at night if she gets home a little early.
Yep.
Our quality time is limited, but actually this is exciting because she is about to leave her second job. So 2 nights a week she will be home starting next week, which is exciting for us.
So I have a couple more things before we get into like the eBay stuff. Okay.
Sure.
So number one, if you're still doing comedy, but you aren't like a world famous comic, so what is that a life like as a comic that isn't like super famous? Like, how do you get jobs or gigs, or how does that work?
Okay. Well, what ends up happening is we do it sort of the DIY lifestyle of doing it, where me and another comic I'm close friends with and have been for a long time, we tend to book our own shows in our own locations and our own venues, going to restaurants, American Legions, VFW halls, firehouses, that sort of thing, and booking shows at those venues, putting them on with our own sound system, our own lighting system, and we make pretty good money on some of those shows. Cool. Actually,
it's like having a punk rock band. You just like make that thing happen.
Yeah. It's very similar to that in a lot of regards. But I still do a fair amount of the 3 positions in comedy are called headliner, middle act, and MC. I still do a lot of local MC work for the clubs in town here in Albany. Those I might get a call on Wednesday asking me if I'm available Thursday through Sunday, that sort of thing.
Yep.
And so a lot of that just sort of falls into my lap.
And so when are you writing stuff, or how are you coming up with new material?
It's a bit of, I don't sit down and focus on writing per se anymore. Now it's, I used to keep a notebook. Now I keep notes on an app on my phone. And just whenever something comes to me that I think could turn into something, just jot it down. And I tend to just sort of throw it out there during the middle of shows and see if there's anything to it. And if there is, I'll spend more time with it now. It's a more organic process than it used to be. I used to sit down and go, I'm writing for an hour tonight, and quite honestly now I don't have an hour. So it's more about trying to make things happen in the moment.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure anyone hearing this that has any kind of artistic endeavor in their life, whether it be they play in a band or they do writing or art, it's you just got to do it one way or another, that's it. Okay, so we kind of got a good snapshot of where your life is at. So when did eBay fit into this? I mean, why did it fit into it if it's already so, kind of tight?
Let's see. I first started doing eBay when I was back actually in college. So I'm 36 now. So probably some 15, 16 years ago is the first time I started doing eBay.
Wow.
And that was just selling things in my room that I wasn't using anymore before I cleaned out for a summer, that sort of stuff.
So, I mean, that was like the old eBay where it's like there's no PayPal and people are just
I would get money orders. Yeah, capture money orders and not having, much of a bank account to try to figure out what do I do with a money order? Things like that. Or I can still remember going to places to buy money orders to send, which seems bizarre now.
No, real quick. I
Yeah.
hear people talk about those old days. My experience with eBay hadn't been until 2008, so it was probably a different world. Could you list anything on eBay and someone would buy it for a lot of money back then?
I didn't have that experience, but I probably, in fact, I know I sold like bootleg CDs and bootleg videotapes of bands and that sort of stuff. That used to be, live music. I would sell that stuff on eBay.
But I mean, would everything always get bought?
Yeah, pretty much. Okay. As far as I remember, there was never a case where, although I mean, everything was auctioned too, so everybody was looking for that. There was no buy it now. There was no good until canceled, that sort of stuff. So, yeah.
So then that's when you started, and then I'm assuming, because the typical story is, I sold a long time ago, then I stopped. Now I'm starting again.
Yep. And I sold a long time ago. I sold once I met my wife. She was also a comedian at the time. And so we decided that we were going to pick up from the Albany area and move out to Chicago.
Yep.
Because it's a good comedy town. And
Second City.
Yeah, exactly. My wife wanted to pursue Second City, sketch comedy, that sort of thing. And so we picked up and we moved to Chicago. And I had a hard time finding a job when we got out there to help pay our bills. And so just I started selling the concert T-shirts I had in my closet. And when I ran out of those, I started going to thrift stores and finding concert T-shirts there that I could sell. Just trying to help make our ends meet.
So are we talking 2006?
Probably right around 2006. 2004, 2005 in there.
Okay.
Yeah, and it was purely going to thrift shops, trying to find something that I could get home and sell just so I could, help contribute to our rent.
That's so interesting because back in those days there weren't a YouTube. I don't know if that was even really a thing just yet, but there weren't all these people that you were able to watch about how to sell and haul videos and all that stuff. So did you feel isolated? Like I'm the only one doing this, or how do I do this?
Yeah, I mean, I had a little experience doing it from back in college, and it didn't really change that much since then. At that point, so it was still mostly auctions, that sort of stuff, and just posting them and getting them all out within the week. I definitely felt alone, sort of. I didn't know if anybody else was doing that to try to make their ends meet. But, my wife was all on board with it too, because part of what we just enjoyed going to do was going to thrift stores and looking at stuff. So, that's sort of always been part of our, it's in our DNA at this point, just continually never not looking for stuff.
Yes, always scavenging,
Yep.
I mean, it's so cool because we've always done that too, but until I realized we could actually sell the stuff on eBay, my scavenging genes didn't really know what to do because I'd find a lot of stuff, but I don't want to keep this stuff, so it's kind of cool. Exactly. We now have an outlet,
Yep. Literally, as long as I can remember, I've been going to garage sales, and there used to be a great flea market near where I grew up in Massachusetts that ran once a week. In fact, that was the first time I had ever flipped stuff. Was my parents sent my brother and I out to go sell our old Nintendo games. And we got there and we set up, and somebody came by within like 5 minutes and bought all of them. Mm-hmm. And we found them on somebody else's table later that day as we walked around the place. And that was the first moment where we go, oh, you can just buy from other people and make money.
Or maybe we need to actually make some more money than what we're charging,
Right.
Charge a little more.
But that was more like a garage sale. Hey, what can we just get for this and get out, Yeah.
Okay, so you're in Chicago, and that sounds very fun and exciting and like a life experience. You're going for it. You're trying things out. And then what happened?
It was different being in Albany because it was sort of big fish in a small pond sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And when we got out to Chicago, just the sheer volume of comedians out there I can go out in Albany and do a show and make $100 for a night or something like that. In Chicago, almost all shows are free.
Yep.
You're not getting paid for it. It's exposure, that sort of thing. It's a showcase, or a regular open mic, instead of being over at 10 o'clock, would go until 12 o'clock in the morning. And, I still ended out with a job out there that I had to be at 6 o'clock in the morning. So eventually I sort of stopped doing so much comedy out there. Then shortly, we got engaged while we were out there, my wife and I. And when we got married, it was just a realization of, like, all of our other friends are comics. They're all busy all the time doing open mics and doing shows. We don't really know anybody else. We want to just move back to New York? And sure enough, we packed up in about 3 weeks and moved back. So Chicago was great. It was an experience, but it wasn't really for us.
Yep.
Especially because I grew up in, the tiniest town that, you can think of. We had one stoplight, and it was a blinking one, not even a full stoplight. So, so Chicago was, for me personally, overwhelming.
Yep, I can see that. Okay, so now you're back in Albany. You've sold some in college. You sold some to actually make some money when you were doing comedy in Chicago.
Yep.
But so when did you pick up again, or have you always sold straight through?
No, I had a pretty large break, actually. There were a couple things that triggered me back selling on eBay. The first thing is I got laid off from a job up here.
Mm-hmm.
Through no fault of my own. Thank you very much. It was a budgetary cut. I'm a state employee in New York, and they always say, "Oh, you got job security, and I got laid off."
Yep.
So I'm somehow beating the odds. And when that happened, we had just bought a house, and
oh my God, and plus had a kid.
Not yet.
Not yet.
We had just found out that we were having a kid.
Wow.
And so that was sort of a double whammy there.
Now, just because I've never experienced that, so is that about sleepless nights? Is that what it feels like?
A bit.
Yeah.
I was not unemployed long enough. I was unemployed for about 6 weeks, so It was not the worst.
That's good.
Actually, the way the state is set up is pretty helpful for if you get laid off due to a budgetary cut. You get basically placed into the next opening for that position.
That's good.
Yeah. The downside is you don't get to choose whether you want to be there or not.
Yeah.
And so I ended out at a job I was not fond of for a little while there.
Right.
But what ends up happening is during that time I started looking at, other ways to make our ends meet. And I started dabbling with listing some stuff that we had around the house again on eBay. But what really got me into it again more full-time was I am a complete geek and nerd sort of guy.
Yeah.
And I was buying a Lego robotics kit off of Craigslist.
Yeah, cool.
The kind of thing that when you pick it up, somebody goes, "Oh, your son's going to be so happy with it." And you go, "Yeah, son, I should have one of those. This is a toy."
Hey.
And as I was looking up other ones, other sort of Lego stuff locally, I saw, some pieces in a collection that sold for about $100.
Wow.
And they were selling the whole collection for, $60. And there was sort of the light bulb moment where I just called up my wife and I said, "Hey, I'm calling off from work tomorrow. I'm going to Massachusetts, about an hour away, to go pick up this person's Lego collection."
Yep.
And that was really what set it off. I had there's a Lego resell website called Bricklink.
Yep.
And I had opened up a Bricklink store and got into reselling Legos as a second income. Those are tedious. Because typically you would buy a large bin of Legos from somebody and you would have to break it down by part number. And every piece has a number on it. You just have to find it.
Has it, real quick, has the market on that, become overexposed, or?
I don't think so. There's actually if you're doing Legos, you can literally go out to a store, buy the Lego sets, take out the figures, and you can usually make your money back on the figures.
So weird.
And then the rest of the pieces, you can sell them. If you're selling them individually, you're going to double your money often on just going to the store and buying a set.
Why is that? I mean, why can't people just go and just buy sets and, I mean, for less money?
There's a certain collectability to the figures themselves, and it's worth it a lot more to somebody to spend $7 to $10 on a figure than it is to spend $35 on a full set.
Yep.
So and plus they keep doing exclusives and things like that. So, the only way you can get the Joker from the Batman movie is if you buy this $300 set.
Right. It's Beanie Babies. That's what it is, people.
Yes, more or less.
Yeah.
They do discontinue, which I know Beanie Babies' downfall was they kept on printing more.
Yeah.
But they do discontinue with the Lego stuff, so that it's. I'm not trying to validate it.
Yeah, no. I make it.
Sounds like I am.
No.
Because I have bins of Legos in my basement that still need to be listed.
If it makes you a money and people want it, hey, it's a good thing.
Right. Okay,
so you realize that you can sell Legos and it makes some cash. So is this a year ago, 2 years ago?
This was probably about 2 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, around 2 years ago.
Got it.
Basically, what would happen is we would put my daughter to bed. I would go upstairs where I had bins and bins of Legos, and I would just start sorting.
Got it. And is your wife, I mean, is she involved at all, or is she just like, cool, go for it, get some
Yeah, she was completely hands-off on the Lego store.
Yep.
She would just see that, our daughter's to bed, time for me to go and sort. And the sorting process would take so long that it was really not worth the time.
Yeah. And when did you start to think, I can buy other things, and what things did you then start to buy? I guess video games. Yeah.
What ended up happening was I would end up sorting out all these Legos and then plugging them into a program that would tell you. There's a website that tells you, you have all these parts. Here's what you have here.
Yep.
Like what sets you likely have, and so. There are some sets that are $100, $150, and I would complete those and then sell those on eBay instead of on the Bricklink store. So that's where the eBay component came back in. And then at that point, it sort of hit me that like, hey, I already go garage selling for this stuff. What else is out there? And it sort of came around on one of the town-wide garage sales I went to where, I was just looking around at other stuff and sort of, I bet you I could make a few bucks off this, and just it happened more gradually than sort of deciding, I'm going to do video games. Because I do some video games, but it's not nearly a primary for me.
Right now, what kind of stuff do you have at your store? Is it just everything?
I have like 75% professional wrestling memorabilia stuff.
Really?
Yeah, because I am, like I said, I'm just a geek when it comes to a lot of stuff, and for me, I was into professional wrestling when I was probably like 5 years old, and I've been watching it ever since. And I'm not, overly proud of that, but it's
Be proud.
It's difficult too.
And is that stuff from just at your house, or did you buy it from somebody?
Some stuff was from my house. That's part of like all the way back in college. I was a tape trader because it was difficult to get some of the like Japanese wrestling videos, which that's how nerdy I am.
Yep.
And so I would end up trading online, finding other people, buying them off of eBay, selling them back on eBay. Now obviously they would crack down on something like that, but that was sort of the beginning.
Yeah, that was the it's wild west of eBay back in the day. Yeah. You can sell anything.
Right, exactly.
So then how do you see at your eBay store now? Is it just kind of like paying our light bill, a vacation every year?
It's actually paying like house maintenance sort of bills right now.
Okay.
Which is probably more than we care for it to be.
Yep.
But I found in the past probably 6 months or so, the PayPal account has largely stayed flat because I'm sourcing so much stuff at this point. Because I went from like 300 items to about I think I'm up to 1,050.
I
Uh,
mean, that are actually online or
yeah,
unlisted?
online.
Online, okay.
Yeah, and that happened all from like January 1 this year.
Wow,
So that was a lot of head down and just listing away.
that's incredible.
And that's only working literally 2 hours at night each night.
That's incredible. So, but I mean, I guess my ultimate question is: so, is any part of you like, huh? If I did this full time,
Oh
I
yeah.
could probably make a full time a living, and then don't have to work at a job I'm not very happy with.
Yep, yep. That is, it's always in the back of my mind. And what I'm aiming for before I sort of make the big decision is I want to get to a point where we have enough saved up that I would be comfortable with sort
Sure.
of letting it float for a few
Yeah.
months.
Totally smart that way. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, so what kind of money are we talking about? Did you need $6,000, 10,000, 2,000?
I'd probably feel most comfortable around a 10,000.
Yep.
And it's just walking away from my job also includes walking away from a retirement that I'm already 8 years in on.
Yeah, that's the year. It's that golden cage.
Yeah,
The bars are real wide, and then the longer it you get into it. Hey, if I hit that 20 years,
right. That's
yeah,
exactly it. And I had my 8 year anniversary with the state 4 days ago. So
wow,
it's sort of, it's difficult to get away once you're there.
yeah, sure.
But it's definitely in the back of my mind. My wife also has an eBay store, and she has a couple hundred items in hers.
She does.
So
Okay, so that's what I was trying to get at. So she isn't just like cool. I like the idea.
yeah,
She's actually doing it.
yes, the Lego stuff she was completely not interested in.
Okay.
But once we started doing other stuff, we would always go to a couple of the large town-wide garage sales near us.
Yep.
And once, even with the Legos that I started selling some for $100 here, $100 there, that's when she went, yeah, I'd be interested in doing some of this stuff too. So you hear it all the time listening to your podcast. It seems to be like the typical story of like, oh yeah, my husband or my wife wasn't really into it. Then I started making money and they were all for it.
Yeah. Why not?
Yeah. What?
I mean,
You can actually do this? Fantastic. I'm in.
so she has a separate store because you guys just like to work in separate spaces. Like you can't just do your
Uh,
own thing.
we have separate stores because we didn't know, you know, which of us would actually see it through. And it's easier for our organizational stuff to keep things separate in terms of, her stuff is in one section of the basement, mine's slowly taking over the house, that sort of thing.
And what kind of stuff is she into? I mean, she has a specialty or?
She's currently doing real well with bedspreads, like
Yeah.
huge bedspreads, and it's like, oh, great. Maybe next time we get into napkins or something like that, something smaller. But she's doing great with them.
Yeah.
I can't complain.
Good.
And actually, she does a lot of bras, swimsuits, that sort of stuff.
Really? That's
It's
interesting.
it's sort of funny because the first time she bought any, we were at a garage sale and there was a whole box of Victoria's Secret stuff, and I basically went up to my wife and said, "I want you to buy that box for me."
Yeah. Right. I
Because
I know the feeling. Trust me.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's I still have difficulty being, "Hi, I'm a guy. I'd like to buy all your undergarments." No, they're not for me. I'm going
Yeah.
to sell them on the internet. What could go wrong?
It's one thing at a thrift store where it's more of a business atmosphere, but if you're in someone's home and you're buying like their underwear, yeah, it's definitely
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep. But so she started seeing that this sort of stuff sold as well, and so she's gotten into a lot of bedspreads, bed sheets, that sort of stuff, and undergarments.
It's always interesting to talk to people who start to sell on eBay kind of in a serious way, and how I think we each kind of stumble into certain items because
Yep.
you kind of buy it, it sells, and you're like, huh,
Yeah.
I could do this more, and then you just do that, and it's kind of cool that way.
Yep.
So, do you guys have the conversation together? Like, hey, if we work together, we could maybe both quit our jobs and like work together, and or is that not a dream?
It is and it isn't. My wife actually just really likes her job.
Ah, you know what? That's a wonderful thing. So that's
Yeah,
good.
it really is. Because she's working basically as her own boss.
Okay.
She's a baker at a vegan bakery.
Okay.
She is not a vegan bakery, but a vegan restaurant. She provides all the baked goods
Yep.
for them. And so she's working out of a kitchen independently, and she sets her own hours. She's just making sure the cases are filled there, and she gets a percentage of whatever sells.
I mean, I'm such a cynical guy. I just assume everyone hates their job, and I shouldn't do that. Yeah, there are jobs people love. People need to love their jobs, or else nothing would get done. So,
well, I think you're largely correct. Though I think a large amount of people do. We go to work because that's what we've been told we're supposed to go and do.
Yeah.
And once you get into it, it's difficult to sort of go, oh, I'm just going to walk away now.
Yeah.
When I discuss it with people at my job, they look at me like I have three heads. What are you talking about?
They're like,
what about your benefits? That's the thing you always hear. What about the benefits?
Yeah.
It's like, well, if you're talking about the massive amount of vacation days we get, any day I wanted to be a vacation day could be a vacation day.
Right.
If I walked away from here.
Yeah.
It's sort of they almost give you the deer in the headlights. Like, I don't know why you would do that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's a tough one, especially, having a family, a house, and, a kid, and maybe more kids. I don't know, like.
Always a possibility.
Yeah. Okay, so you're now into it. So this is interesting to me to hear, since you'd kind of known about eBay and had always kind of dabbled in it from the year 2000, 1999. When you got back into it now, did you start to realize it was a whole thing, that there was like a YouTube world and people were talking about it,
Well, I actually have we talked about it before we started recording podcasts. And so my go-to was to hop on iTunes and start looking up podcasts to see if anybody else is doing this sort of thing, like eBay radio, and that sort of stuff. And actually, your guys was one of the first ones I stumbled onto.
Huh.
I still remember actually very distinctly listening to you guys while going out and doing what I said I would never do, and that was Thanksgiving Day shopping. Because I was going to go and get me some Legos to sell on eBay.
Yep.
It's
Black Friday.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Yeah.
Cool. Well, hey, you got to experience it all, right?
Right. I guess. Actually, I had a very pleasant Thanksgiving night shopping experience.
Huh.
Somebody in front of me in line said, I work at this Walmart. I know where there's no line. And they just took me over to a stand where nobody was, and I was in and out of Walmart in 5 minutes.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have a full-time job. Let's talk about when you list. So it's your daughter goes to bed at what, 8 o'clock or something?
8 o'clock, right around 8 o'clock.
And then that's when the work starts, the second work. Okay.
Yep. So just let me give you like the rundown of my daily schedule. It's like
let's go.
Usually, my daughter likes to wake up early, so we're usually up at about 5:30.
What?
Yeah.
Anyone it's with kids is like, yep, 5 o'clock. That's all right.
Yeah, we're hoping that'll change soon, but that's it for the time being.
Yep.
And then I'm at work from 8 to 4. I am strictly dad between 4 and 8. Don't do any work during that time.
Yep.
And then I basically go back to work at 8 o'clock at night until 10 or 11. And that's, rinse, wash, repeat.
Again, I hear these stories, like that seems not uncommon. People with kids, with jobs, and they sell on eBay, and they seem to do very well. I'm just like, man, my hat is off to all of you guys. Really, that is just real commitment,
Well, what it is for me is when I got laid off in the past, it was very financially difficult for us.
Yep.
And just sort of remembering that is just, I'm not going to go through that again. So, that's the motivation. If that's the motivation I need for selling, then that's what I'll tap into.
Our good friend Flim, that's what she goes by on our blog, and we interviewed her. She's in it's Manhattan, and she got laid off. But you know what? She had her eBay store. She was doing pretty good, just part time, and she just turned it up.
Yeah.
So I guess that is a good kind of a fallback.
Yeah, I think it's a safety net, at this point.
And do you ever have bad days at work where just there's that thought in the back of it's your mind, like I could just go up to as my boss and just say,
I have
I'm
FU money. It's
yeah,
I'm out of here. It's
yeah.
yeah. No, it's
Hasn't happened yet.
no. I actually like my boss. I don't know
Good.
if I'd say that to her. It's
Yeah.
but
Good.
everybody has bad days at work.
Yeah.
We have bad days selling on eBay. I think everybody
Yeah.
does.
Bad days
It's
in general.
right. It's just harder to get away if you're expected to be there between 8 and 4.
Yep.
I'll just be at my desk with my head down. You guys leave me alone.
Yep.
It's
Okay, so did you work after 8, and
Yep.
then where is stuff stored? So it sounds like there's a basement, and
Yeah,
okay,
almost everything's stored in the basement.
got it. Any problems? It's with things getting wet, damp.
Now,
Okay,
almost every single thing is in a bin,
okay,
and we also have a dehumidifier running down there
got it.
constantly.
Now, if you don't have a small store, if you're up to 1,000 items, I mean that's 1,000 items on eBay. I'm sure if you have other stuff that hasn't even been put online, is are there shelves or is it just plastic bins?
Um, it's mostly plastic bins. We actually have, when we moved into this house, the person that lived here before us sort of had a bit of like a wood shop in the basement.
Yep.
And so we have this real nice shelving unit and like a very nice like work table that's the length of the basement. So
Got it. So, what was the point in this generation of the store where you realized I need a system? Like this is I can't just have stuff lying around.
it was probably around the 350 item mark,
Wow.
around there,
Yep.
where
It's not
I
just a
saw,
hobby at that point, you know.
right. It was like I sort of know where everything is. I can find it, but it's going to take me maybe 10 minutes an item instead of or 20 minutes.
Right.
Really, when I hit that first item that I couldn't find, it's like, oh, that's it. We need to have a better system because we were storing some stuff upstairs. We have an upstairs that we don't really use,
Yeah.
and then the basement. So, oh, is this here? Is it there? It's
I had this friend who I've kind of helped get started into eBay, and he's starting. He probably has a couple hundred items, and he shows me pictures of like his storage, and it's just like my nightmare. It's just like, yeah, the extra bedroom, and just stuff is just lying everywhere. I mean, it's still not so much stuff where I don't think he's lost anything yet, but he's right at the edge. Yeah, it's like 200-300 items.
We have old death piles up in our upstairs here, and they're consuming the upstairs.
The things will eat at your soul until they
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in fact, a lot of it is, from when we were first buying and is so low valued that we're debating,
Have a yard sale.
that was exactly it. Have a yard sale and clean out, or, I don't necessarily want to list a board game that's oversized,
Right.
and that's going to be a hassle to ship and deal with for $10 or $15.
Yeah.
It's like, I'll just throw it outside for $5 and be happy with that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay, so then when things get bought, who ships and when?
We both ship our own items.
Okay.
And so typically I'll ship as soon as my daughter goes to bed, and then I'll start listing for the night. And my wife generally ships when she gets back from work at like 11 o'clock at night, 10 or 11 at night.
Yep. So when you wake up in the morning and things are sold overnight, those don't get packed up till
that evening.
That evening. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Cool.
It still falls within the one day.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, totally. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
you honestly really have, more than 24 hours. Honestly,
Right.
Yep. Yeah. I got you. Well, it's good. It's it's good to kind of have like a structure and a schedule. And then, can you leave them out and have them picked up, or
Yeah, we have we're fortunate we're last house on a dead end street.
Mm-hmm.
And so, as such, I mean, nobody walks by our house,
Right.
so we can pretty much leave out whatever we want to there.
Wow. And so, some people who live in an urban area complain there's always a different post person. They don't understand about picking up. They forget. They're mean. Not in your case?
No, we're not actually in the city of Albany. We're near it. And so, where we are, we have the same postman 5 out of 6 days a week. He's great. The sixth day, the guy doesn't like that we sell stuff, but he likes to complain about our labels being difficult to scan. That's
Really?
about it. Yeah, yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Now, are you on a first name it's basis? It's with the a full time guy.
Yes. Yep.
Cool.
Don't ask me what it is though. Right now, I do not remember.
That's okay. I'm just, as long as he would and recognize you. I always find it's like that's really important is to get to know it's your post office person because our mail lady is a grumpy lady, but she likes us because I
Yep.
made her like us, and she will even come and check on our porch even if we haven't, sent out the notice online.
Yep. Yep. Our guy does that too.
Yeah.
Which is just super helpful. You know that if it's his day on, you can just put it outside and he's going to stop by.
Yeah. Incredible. Yeah. And are you guys willing to ship anything, or are you guys like it's got to fit in a poly mailer?
No, we're willing to ship anything. I've done some advertising signs, that sort of thing, and they can be like those 10, like 3 foot by 2 foot signs and that sort of stuff. Actually, one of the first things that I tried to do when I was getting back into selling was sell a giant size Elsa doll.
Wow.
From they
Frozen.
were from Frozen. They were like the hot item one Christmas time.
Sure, yeah.
And that was like one of the first items I was selling, and it was like 4 feet tall.
Yep.
And that's when I decided, you know what, I'm not going to ship something 4 feet tall for like $30 profit. It's when it cost me like 50 to buy it.
Yeah, and take you an hour to actually
Right,
pack
exactly.
it. Yeah.
Yep.
Now, you don't have to tell me this, but do you list it at work at all?
No, I don't list it work at all.
On your phone, okay.
No.
But I think we had talked about this on your lunch break. It is not a big sourcing time?
Yeah, actually, I source currently almost exclusively from eBay.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Because I have just not a lot of time to get out and source. I can do garage sales on the weekends, and in fact, for the first time this past weekend, I asked my daughter, "Do you want to go garage sailing?" And she goes, "Garage sailing!" And it's like, I'm sorry, So she doesn't mind doing that, but she absolutely hates getting into a shopping cart.
Yeah.
And that limits going to thrift stores. And there's a lot of thrift stores that just don't have shopping carts
Right.
around here, And
so then what kind of stuff are you buying online? I mean, you don't got to be real specific, but like
what I generally will buy online is I'll buy stuff in a lot where it's like, here's a lot of, I'll give you a specific example. It's just easier. I buy these Disney slides from like the early 80s or late 70s type thing.
Yep.
And, most of them are still new in the package.
Wow.
Because apparently nobody ever actually did those slideshows.
Yep.
But somebody will be like, "Oh yeah, I have 26 packs of those," and it's a 7-day auction, and they end up selling for about $15 or $20 or something like that.
Huh.
I'll buy up the lot and turn it around, break it up, and sell each piece in it for about $15.
Look at you. That's
and so I have a lot of lower priced items in my store in that, $10 to $20 range.
Yep.
But it's sort of but I bought, 20 of these for this $20.
Right.
And so I'll make 400 off of it. It's just going to be in $20 increments.
Right. And do you search by specific like topic, or do you just do lot of blank?
I search by specific topic. I go with what I know. I have, a lot of background in actually really obscure board games.
Yep.
I'm a guy that until my daughter was born every year, I was going to Indianapolis to go to a big gaming convention each year with I think last year they had 50,000 people show up for it.
Yep.
And I would actually pay my way there by buying up these board games and bringing them there, and they had a live auction at the place, and I would just turn them around there.
Wow.
And pay for my hotel, pay for my, food for the week and that sort of stuff. And that's, I never stop looking, right?
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you're just buying stuff all the time, just keeping an eye on auctions and
Yeah.
offers and stuff like that. Okay.
Yep. Typically on a given day, like I had 4 packages show up today of probably about, I don't know, 15 items. So, that's stuff that I'll try to get up maybe tomorrow.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so, this is a thing, again, that separates the people that are just kind of hobbyists versus people that have a store. That's how you deal with customers. So, how do you deal with people when...
I tell them to go to hell. No. No. I think I take I think it's a pretty standard approach of like being almost polite to a fault.
Yeah.
I have an extremely low return rate. It's under 1%.
Incredible.
Yeah, and I think it's because, right now I'm selling a lot of men's t-shirts, and I find that they just have a very low rate of return,
But, have you turned on hassle-free it's returns in 30 days? Okay, that's good. Yeah, I think if you're selling... quality items and your listing is true to it's what the item is, people are normally happy,
Yeah, and to play to Dan from the blog as well, I don't list measurements either.
Yep.
But that's generally because a lot of what I sell might be like a concert T-shirt or something like that. If you go to a concert, you're not gonna, what's the size of that shirt?
I am so pro. No measurements now. It's just just the logic is seeped in. The argument makes sense. I don't buy that way. When I buy on eBay, I just type in men's pants,
right.
34, and that's it. I don't care if it's 22 inches or whatever it is.
Yeah, and I also do what Dan actually suggested when, somebody writes to you and says, hey, what are the measurements on this? And I just don't respond. It's sort of that's about the only time I feel like I'm not doing good customer service.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not worth going through everything to find this one shirt so I can let them know and then have them not buy it.
So, so maybe that's just part of it's your nature is just to treat people politely. Because it seems like a lot of people who start selling on eBay, that's the time they hit a wall. They get a grumpy customer. They take it really personally. It becomes a huge drama, and they either quit or they just hate it, and they find all the other people that hate eBay online, and they just talk to those people about it.
Yeah, I've always, in terms of like doing comedy, to bring it back to that, one of the things that I've always found.
Ah, that's right. Yeah, it's like a heckler,
Yeah, well, not even like a heckler, but in terms of like how you will advance the fastest is always be open to suggestions.
Yep.
And beyond that, I love the phrase "keep your mouth shut and your eyes open."
Yep.
And you'll learn so much more that way. It's like the best way in comedy to learn is to go out and watch comedy. And you learn a lot more from watching a really sort of cruddy open mic than you do going out and watching, George Carlin.
Right.
Because you're going to see a fully polished product that way. Well, you're going to learn more from watching these guys struggle.
Yep.
Because you're going to learn what not to do faster than what to do.
Yeah, very true. Okay, so... you're not getting a lot of its returns. People are buying stuff. Okay, so what kind of, if you feel comfortable to share, what kind of numbers do you make every month? Like, what have you been averaging?
The last couple months has been probably around 2,500 a month.
That's
25 to 3,000 a month.
That's really good for
It's also a deceptive number because I do a lot of self-flipping, which is, I will buy something for myself in one of these lots of 10 items, sell off 8 of them to break even, and keep the other 2.
Gotcha.
And that's how, because I'm still a video gamer, and that's how I buy my video games.
Yep.
I'll spend $300 to get that, $60 game.
Yep.
But I'll make my 300 back. But
so how much just kind of ballparking it, because I'm always into like, I want everyone to quit the jobs that they hate.
Yeah.
So ballpark, what is that a net of that $2,500? Are you making $1,000?
It's probably 17 or 1800. It's probably in that area.
Got it. But then, are you going into that fund to pay for home stuff and bills, or is that like a savings account?
Not often. But if we get hit with a larger bill, it's likely just to come right out of our PayPal, so we don't have to sort of deal with it. I buy so many, I get jealous when I see people's cost of goods sold on the blog. It's like, oh, you spent, $5 this week on new items. I spent $375.
Wow.
It's like, but it's because I'm buying in such bulk often.
Right.
That it ends out.
And also because as you're buying online, I don't know if that makes your cost a little bit higher.
Well, when I buy a T-shirt, I won't spend more than $5 for it. So, but that ends up being, if you were to go to a garage sale, $5 for a T-shirt's insane.
Right.
So.
I guess that is a lucky thing. Those of us that have more time to source. Again, I'm just like, we can go out and on a good day, fill up our car for $100,
Yeah.
Because people are just giving stuff away.
Right. And I do Saturdays, I take my daughter and we go garage selling in the morning, and my wife sometimes goes to work, sometimes hits up other garage sales. And, it's not bad, but we end up with a lot of stuff for my daughter.
Yeah, well.
When you go up to a garage sale and there's a lot of toys there, sometimes you just want to...
Daddy has to learn to say no.
Well, honestly, they could charge, most toys aren't listed. If my daughter picks something up, they could say $75, and sometimes it's like, yeah, that's probably worth it to avoid a meltdown right now.
True.
They could say whatever number they want to, and I'm pretty much going, yeah, okay.
Okay, so how much do you think your wife is averaging per month? Does she have like a steady...
She's probably around, hers has gone steadily down this past month because she started up a second job about 2 months ago.
Oh, yeah.
So she's at about $750 or $500 a month.
Right. Gotcha.
Yeah.
And she sources her stuff where? It sounds like more yard sales, right?
Yard sales, and she definitely goes and puts my daughter in a cart and goes to like Salvation Army or Goodwill, that sort of stuff.
Gotcha. So, just again, it just sounds like your guys' numbers aren't bad.
No, they're not.
If you're talking about needing to save up $10,000, it wouldn't be that hard in 6 months to save up $10,000 if those numbers are correct, if you keep them up.
Right. Yeah. And again, like the difficult part for me is just most of the money is going back into sourcing right now. So I'm spending probably $300 to $400 pretty consistently, almost on a weekly basis.
Right. But at some point, are you gonna? It's got to come out the other end, though, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So it's right now. It's kind of in that building up stage of your.
Yeah, and it's sort of that nice stage of feeling like I'm spending somebody else's money to buy stuff.
Right.
Which then has led me to a couple bad purchases, but it's never. I'm not buying a tractor trailer.
Right.
Worth of stuff. I might be buying something for $20. It shows up, and I go, you know what? I can probably only get 25 for this. It's typically, we're doing pretty well.
Good. Now, just kind of like to wrap this up, and with kind of the topic I, kind of was hoping to kind of touch on, and that's, like the art aspect or funding your art. Do you ever talk to your friends who are comics who are struggling for work? Like, hey, why don't you just sell stuff on eBay and then go and...
I know at least 2 other comics that sell online as well.
Really?
Yeah.
Cool.
It typically comes from people that sort of just like thrift shopping to begin with. If you're working a weekend in comedy, what you'll find is it's fun for about 2 hours at a time. Because that means, you wake up at, say it's 9 o'clock and you're in a town you don't know.
Yep.
you have until 6 or 7 o'clock that night just to kill the day.
Yep.
And so I think, that sort of like scavenging for stuff is ideal for somebody in comedy. I mean, and plus you're always driving your own car.
I mean,
it's always...
wow. So yeah, it's almost like the Amazon FBA might even be perfect for like a traveling comic, because you have your car, you have like a little printer, you're staying in hotels, so you're just going around finding stuff. You box it up and you just mail it off.
Yeah, I mean, and I've done that where, well, not FBA, I never got into that, but I mean, in terms of doing a weekend of shows out of town, it's like, I don't know what to do today.
Yep.
I'm going to go hit up all the thrift stores I can find, and just sometimes honestly, like the road can be excruciatingly boring.
Yeah.
I used to blog for a local newspaper, and I did a photo series of like, oh, this is my time at a show, and it was just pictures of me in my car. Because I drove, 3 hours each way to get to a show that I was doing 5 minutes on to showcase for somebody.
Yeah.
It's like, there's one picture of the club. All right, and I'm back in my car. It's
a glamour of entertainment.
Right. Yeah, then you get the bizarre thing of like, after a show, somebody will be like, can you sign this for me? I'm like, what? I'm just... tomorrow I'm going to be at your garage sale. How about I trade you for that?
It's a big deal getting in front of an audience of any kind and doing a thing. A lot of people can't do that.
Yeah, and it's fun. It's my creative release for the time being, because I think without that I would slowly start going crazy. So.
Well, I will just remind people that I will put a link to one of your pieces on the blog, so you can help me pick a good one. And again, not safe for work. So.
Right. Yeah, totally.
Very little of comedy is. Okay, Deric, let's do this. If you ever leave your job and go eBay full time, contact me. I know you're on our blog, but contact me and we'll do this again, because I'd love to kind of hear that story, But
that sounds good. Ooh, wait.
Yeah, go.
Can I do the show close?
Yeah, go for it.
All right. You can check out the blog at scavengerlife.com. It will have all the links we talked about today. But more importantly, you can join in the conversation with Jay, Ryanne, and myself, and I will try to respond to anyone asking a question this week. The conversation is the most important thing. We all elevate our skills by this way of communication. You can call and leave a question or comment on something you heard on Scavenger Life voicemail. The number is 540-407-8486. Or if you're like me, just scroll through your contacts until you reach the one for Scavenger Life. An episode is posted every Monday. Subscribe through iTunes or YouTube to make sure you always get the latest one. Don't forget the other podcast over at shampooandbooze.com. If you want to rent Jay and Ryan's Airbnb, you can get the information for that over at shampooandbooze.com as well. If you want to rent Deric's Airbnb, that's too bad. I don't have one. You can add Deric over on Facebook at facebook.com/stripedcomic, where striped comic is all one word. I unfriend people very quickly, so don't be offended. Scavenger Life tells you to list it and forget it. So instead of telling you this podcast will be ending in 3, 2, 1, I wanted to let you know that Scavenger Life is good until canceled. Bye, everybody.
Bye.